Tracer LORA is now available. What is Tracer LORA, and why are people excited that it's available?
Yeah, so it's been available for a little while, but Trappy talked about it again on the stream, and I figured since that's the case, we can at least go ahead and share it. It is super alpha still, so just make sure you're aware of that. But we do have the post by Trappy we can throw up on the screen. But yeah, basically, so this is the early version of LoRa. LoRa is the basically the long range version. All the RXs that we have, like the 900s and 2.4s, like Tracer and Crossfire and Express LRS and Ghost, all have the LoRa chip in them. So they have different modes they can talk in. And they've added the LoRa mode, which is a more long-range mode that typically is slower, but we've found in a lot of cases that, obviously in Express LRS, you could run a 500 hertz LoRa and still get a lot of range. So Trappy has released the 50 and 150 hertz modes for LoRa as the first step for Express or for Crossfire, or Tracer, rather.
Yeah. So the complaint that this addresses is that Tracer is high speed because it uses FLRC modulation. It has low latency, but it has worse range. And people said, well, we know the chip that Tracer has can do LoRa as well. Why won't you give it to us? And now they did. So if you have Tracer, there's potential here that you'll get significantly better range at somewhat higher latency, but at least you'll have the choice. This is one of the things that I've always thought that gave Ghost a little bit of an edge over Tracer, is that they at least give you the option. But the difference is Ghost, only 350 milliwatts. Tracer, up to 1 watt. And 50 hertz at 1 watt is going to, well, not as good as Crossfire because it's still 2.4 gigahertz, but significantly better than
yeah, that's more range than most people will ever need, that's for sure.
Yeah. Now, what makes this comparison so interesting to me, Blunty, is that like Express LRS 3.0 also has some FLRC modes, and Express LRS can do 1,000 hertz using the same type of modulation that Tracer uses and only gets 250 hertz. Why is Express LRS 4 times faster?
It depends on who you ask, I think. Trappy says there's no reason to run LoRa over 150 hertz if you ask him. He says it's a waste of time and a waste of coding.
Well, they're running at 1,000 hertz, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't Express LRS doing FLRC?
Yeah, but I'm talking about even at LoRa, like Trappy has different looks at how links work than we do, I think. Like when he's talked before, like we run 500 hertz LoRa, he says that's a waste of use. There's no point in doing that. Why would anybody ever run that? We're going to provide you what we think is useful, which is 150 hertz. That's what you're going to get.
Well, it's mighty convenient that also they're just not technologically capable of doing more than that without like completely rewriting their protocol.
I mean, yeah.
I'm always a little bit. It's like our product can't do this, but don't worry, you don't need it anyway. Well, it's interesting. I mean, maybe you're right, but that's awfully self-serving.
The maximum frame rate has no meaning anyway, especially in LoRa, since you lose range the higher the frame rate, and LoRa is supposed to give you long range. So we opted to use a lower frame rate, but get more range and penetration.
Blah, blah.
Yep.
LoRa is supposed to give you long range. Who said that? Maybe with LoRa, I want 500 hertz at shorter range. Why don't I get to decide that?
Yeah.
Who? The only possible use for LoRa is slow, long-range links. Anybody who thinks differently can shut up. No, come on. That's silly.
I mean, it's a very Trappy thing. That's what he said for a long time. So,
yes.
I don't know. This is what you get. This is TBS is always going to give you what they want you to get, and that's how they operate. So, this is what Trappy wants you to get.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we do know that there was a test with Express LRS, the one that Limon did. Was it 500 hertz versus 50 hertz? Was it 250? I can't remember.
I think it was 250 versus 50.
Yeah.
I think is what
Limon and another racer tested 250 versus 50, and they could tell like 8 out of 10 and 9 out of 10, or like statistically significant. They could tell the difference on a race course. So the idea that it does, there's no point in going faster doesn't seem to bear out, at least for racers on a race course. It feels like the idea that FLRC is for high speed and LORA is for long range is a marketing decision, that Trappy is trying to segment his market and convince his users that they want to use the product in the way that he thinks is best. But Express LRS is already giving people 500 hertz, 250 hertz, and it seems like they want it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's also interesting. What I was going to get at, though, Blunty, is that the big difference between Express LRS and Crossfire is that Express LRS has been written from the ground up to be extremely compact and efficient and fast and lightweight. And so Express LRS data packets are literally smaller than Crossfire data packets. And so
yes.
For a given type of transmission technology, at a given bit rate, you can get more Express LRS packets through. And that's why TBS will always be behind in this race. They will have more features, but they'll have like more sophisticated telemetry and so forth. But at the end of the day, Express LRS will always have higher packet rates and longer range because of their smaller packets. Yeah. So, and that's why when they get FLRC, you only get 50 and 150 hertz. You don't get anything more. Whereas in Express LRS, you're getting much faster.
Yeah.
So, let's see here. What's this discussion about the wire protocol? There's a discussion here in the Discord that says the Crossfire wire protocol doesn't support higher rates, so there's no point in Express LRS using higher packet rates over the air. Is there any validity to that?
Radio to module, but so does Express LRS uses CRSF as well from radio to module, and they run 500 hertz. So I'm not aware of any limitation
with Crossfire Shot. With Crossfire Shot, doesn't the module run at the same rate as the?
Yes. Yeah.
And it can.
My understanding is that is not a limitation. The only thing you have is there is a latency from the time across that based on the baud rate, but there's not and you can just lower that latency based on the baud rate, but you're not getting like a limit on the packet rate based on that. That's my understanding.
Yeah. Okay. Terminal Insanity in the chat is watching the replay, but commenting and arguing that that Express LRS thing is not clickbait because he has a working script that can hijack DX8 links. I think he's missed that we didn't say the attack wasn't real. We said that it's not unique to Express LRS, that it's true for every RC link.
Yep.
Okay. Terminal Insanity. When you get to this point in the chat, you'll hear my response. Blunty, is Crossfire in big trouble right now? Little editorial, little hot take. We didn't plan this. I'm gonna put you on the spot. Are they in trouble?
I don't know. I don't think so. It depends on what they do. I don't have any way of knowing that. Let me put it like that. I don't have any way of knowing that. There's no way for me to know. Crossfire everything is always sold out anyway. Right? How many more things can they make to sell? Who is waiting
TBS?
on something that? Yes, I understand the idea, but are they having trouble selling hardware? I guess is the question. They've always had a 6-month backlog on Tango 2s. You know what I mean?
Sure.
There's still a backlog on Tango 2s as far as I know. So are they hurting? That's the way I would put it.
That I see the point there, that if you're selling all the hardware you can make, then what are you losing?
Yes. And maybe they're not, but my impression is they're still selling most, if not all, the hardware, especially the radios that they make. But
I think that there is a trailing sort of indicator where the floor sort of drops out from under you once you lose a kind of critical mass. It seems to me like in this hobby, there are certain, do you remember when, I don't know how long ago this was or if you were in FPV, there was a time when all of a sudden, like a finger snap, everybody had a rapid fire in their effing goggles. You would go, I remember the very first Rampage, I was looking around and everybody had that damn red module cover. And I was like, holy shit. And it used to be everybody used LaForge or whatever. No, but it was all rapid fire. And it feels like when that critical mass shift happens, something that other stuff can sort of fall by the wayside.
I mean, that's fair. Yeah.
I wonder if we are seeing the sort of initial pebbles of the avalanche. You know, ExpressLRS is not out of stock. Now, some of the ExpressLRS receivers are garbage and you shouldn't buy them. But there's like 8, 9, 10 different ExpressLRS manufacturers right now. I guarantee you I could buy an ExpressLRS receiver anywhere in the world right now. That's not true for Crossfire. The new modulation methods that ExpressLRS 3.0 has, the new, it's like they're just kicking ass. And it feels like Crossfire has this cruft, this they're not quick moving. They've built this big lumbering infrastructure around their technology, and people are like, oh, I want this thing. Can you do 500 hertz? No. Whether that's just marketing or not, people are doing it. And I feel like they are going to have to really sort of rearrange their furniture if they're going to catch up.
Yeah, I don't know. I we'll see. Like I said, I still think they're selling their hardware.
Yeah.
And I think they've always just sold their hardware. So like, I don't know. Over time adoption, maybe it'll go down and maybe it'll change and maybe they'll make some decisions that are bad. But like, I don't.
You're
I guess
not
I don't
willing
have
to
a
say
strong opinion. I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other, just because like no, there's not a single if there was a single manufacturer for ExpressLRS and it was under a company, I would 100% agree with you. But there's no marketing push for ExpressLRS. There's no single company to talk to. There's no support avenue. There's no, like, there's all these things like that have developed because of an open source community, but they're never going to be there for ExpressLRS. It will never, it's not possible, like, to happen. Like, there are companies who could say, like, hey, we'll do it, but they're not going to support all the hardware. They're not going to support all the use cases. There's always going to be cases like SPI, which won't come forward or won't take the features forward. You have to buy new hardware, or, hey, this company designed this weirdly, and this has a weird trace, and it can't do this. Or, hey, these crystal oscillators have a weird offset, and they can't do the same bandwidth that the other devices can do. Like, all those pieces, to me, will always keep it from being, like, just replacing TBS. Like, it will never do that. Like, there will always be places
has created
for people.
A consumer ecosystem in a way that an open source janky hardware made from 9 different manufacturers never will.
Everybody doesn't want to tinker. It's just the case. And maybe ExpressLRS will get easier and easier, but if everybody makes the hardware, it will never be as easy as TBS. It's just not possible. Maybe TBS will continue to fuck up their firmware like they have in the past to make a horrible issues with AGID and crash a bunch of stuff. But eventually you can DFE your stuff properly and get back to what you had. Eventually you can emergency flash your RX and get back to what you had and make your stuff work, which is something that, you know, it's typically the case with ExpressLRS, but it takes a lot more know-how and effort to do that. And maybe that will change in the future over time. I just don't see that happening from multiple manufacturers. It's just not something you can bring into a cohesive ecosystem without an ExpressLRS approval program like we talked about.
Then why is Betaflight more popular than KISS? Because KISS is analogous to TBS in that KISS is high-quality hardware made by a dedicated manufacturer who has your back.
KISS is still around. I don't understand what you mean. I'm not saying TBS will be dominant.
Yeah, but Betaflight is like KISS 20 times more popular than KISS. I don't know what the multiplier
hardware is. I'm not saying who's popular. I'm not saying who uses what. That's none of that have I said at any point.
I see.
All of I said is they sell all their hardware.
So you're saying TBS as a company will stay around and continue to sell hardware. However, they may not have the market share that they're. I guarantee you, I would bet almost any amount of money that ExpressLRS is eating into Crossfire's market share. I mean, I just feel like that. I don't know numbers. I feel like that has to be true.
But the question was because was that actually TBS market share because nobody could buy hardware anyway? Or was that Frisky? Was that Free Sky? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how much used Crossfire hardware is there out to buy right now? How much new Crossfire hardware? I don't know all those answers, you know, but like, I do know I've seen tons of people still asking for a Tango 2. Maybe that's because they have problems making Tango 2s. But like, they couldn't sell more if they were more popular because they don't have Tango 2s to make, from my understanding. Like, I don't know. My viewpoint of it is, as long as they continue to make hardware and sell that hardware, unless we start seeing sales on Crossfire at stores, right? Like that's when we have to be concerned about Crossfire and Tracer to me, right?
All right.